Well, now we have to take a look at the newspapers today.
Yes.
We have quite a bunch of newspapers. Traditionally, naturally, we'll start with our sister media outfit, the This Day newspaper. Well, the lead story here is, of course, what we've seen earlier, the interview with the Nigerian Chief of Army Staff. And This Day has the interview, a story on it, on its front page. Buratai, we have defeated insurgency, but facing the challenge of terrorism. Says Boko Haram is everywhere, including Lagos. You recall, Tundunda, yesterday when the Chief of Army Staff said we have defeated insurgency, we're facing the challenge of terrorism. After the interview, we have been trying to understand the distinction
between terrorism and
insurgency. And you were saying, well, you know, he was right, because insurgency, you know, may have been checked, preventing the Boko Haram from setting up their caliphate or taking over parts of the Nigerian territory. But terrorism, according to him, is something that you really cannot know the end of it.
Exactly.
And that is everywhere. And that even some other countries like Colombia, you know, have been dealing with the challenge of terrorism. It's just for government to remain vigilant, to remain proactive. But I guess to the ordinary man on the street, it may be very difficult to make this distinction clear enough. And that's why communication is important. That's why the Chief of Army Staff, you know, I think did a good thing to grant the opportunity of an interview for him to be able to explain, you know, some of these issues.
Another distinction that he made that we noted yesterday after we spoke with him was the distinction between the duties of the military and the police. The difference between security and defense.
Exactly.
So he drew these distinctions, and once he explained it, it's obvious, isn't it? But to the layman, your average person, for all intents and purposes, is the same. For all intents and purposes, insurgency and terrorism is the same, but in reality, they're not. Like you said, with ISIS, when America comes out to say that they have decimated ISIS, that's not a lie, it's true, because the caliphate has been beaten back. But will there be violent attacks that grab headlines and unfortunately scores of people killed? Unfortunately, yes. So that is the terrorism aspect. And he went to great lengths explaining really that the police also has a part to play. And some of what we term insecurity is just a broad brush definition or a description of the current situation in Nigeria, which we all agree is terrible. But some of it is kidnapping, armed robbery, all of this. The police also has a part to play. So that was, I really appreciate it.
He also made a point that it's not just government that has a responsibility to ensure security. It's a collective responsibility.
The media, the public.
But he gave a very good example as well when he was discussing how, for example, that the military can be called into a particular area or local government, and they're called in to secure that area because of insurgency. Now, once it's secure, the military's job is done, and it's for the police to then take over and ensure that they keep up with what the military have come in to do. And he made that point of suggesting that if an area then becomes insecure again, we have to also look to the police. And that's a very important distinction to make, because, I mean, he did say it's in harsher terms, the military are trained to kill, but he didn't lie. I mean, he really didn't lie.
The training is different, the functions are different.
Exactly.
This rider says Boko Haram is everywhere, including Lagos. I mean, that's a bit scary.
Yes.
And he did say so yesterday.
He did.
But we knew this as well, you know, they're widespread. They are widespread.
I didn't know they were in Lagos. That gave me chills.
Well, again, on the front page of This Day, we have this story, which is everywhere today, titled, "In New Policy, CBN Restricts Milk Importation to 6 Firms. Says policy aims at boosting local production." Well, we discussed this earlier, and that story is also in many other newspapers.
Yes.
Well,
and we also have the Daily Sun. And the headline on the Daily Sun today is "Bomb Rocks Edo APC Secretary's Residence. Hold Obaseki responsible," Oka says. Izeyamu Oshomole, cohorts mastermind of political violence from the government.
Oh, dear.
Oh,
well,
dear,
I mean,
oh, dear.
You know, this is a fear about the tension, the political tension, the politics of ego that we have been witnessing in Edo State. Now, when this is associated with violence, when the stakeholders resort to violence, then there is cause for very serious fear about the next gubernatorial elections in that state. And I guess we can only just call on the political stakeholders in that state to realize that, they can only achieve their political objectives when the state is alive and well.
Exactly.
And that the main objective in providing leadership is to serve the people, not, to cause violence because of your own personal ambition.
I mean, this is a disgrace. But it's not a surprise that things have escalated to this degree. There have been attempts to broker peace between the warring factions, but they have not been successful. And, INEC has now announced the dates for elections. Unfortunately, the predictable, turn of events will be that the violence only begins to escalate from this point, unless something serious, something drastic is done.
And the people have to be considered here. The people really do. But before we move on from the Daily Sun, this is an interesting one as well. Buhari, I will defeat terrorism. Now, why this is interesting is sitting with the Chief of Army Staff yesterday when he was giving that distinction between terrorism and insurgency, he basically also said that terrorism cannot actually be defeated. So it's interesting to see. I'm not sure where that statement from the president actually came from, but the president has come out to say that he will defeat terrorism.
It can be defeated because if we're looking at the Northern Ireland model, that was successful. But the way that worked was the Good Friday Agreement. It was negotiation. It was a political solution, which lasted for quite a while. So we'll see if there can be a political solution to terrorism in other parts of the world, but not in Nigeria.
Well, I do not expect the president of Nigeria to say I will not defeat terrorism.
He'll say that. No, but I hadn't finished.
Yeah.
In Nigeria, the political solution might not work. My point is this point of terrorism cannot be defeated. It can. It has been done before. But in Nigeria, I'm not sure if that would work because Boko Haram is not political. It's ideological.
And the indoctrination
so I don't think they'll come to the table and have any discussions.
Yeah, I think that's also why the Chief of Army Staff was making that point yesterday where he said we are not going to defeat terrorism.
Yes, it's a different, our particular situation is a different beast.
Yeah.
Now we have Daily Trust. Federal Character Commission grounded, operates with only one commissioner. Now, this is most unfortunate because the principle of federal character is captured in the Constitution. It's supposed to be an integral part of our nationhood to ensure that there's no parts of the country that feels marginalized. So, and especially with this particular administration that has had so many accusations of nepotism. So we do need the Federal Character Commission up and running, although some people have, theoretical objections to this theory at all, but it is our law, it's the law of the land, so
well, the Federal Character Commission is supposed to have a representative from every state of the Federation. So technically, they're supposed to have 36 plus 1, which will be 37. Now, there's only one because the tenures of the other federal commissioners has expired. And even this Ambassador Shinkafi, the chairman of the commission that is still the Ambassador Shinkafi, his own tenure will also expire in April. So it looks untidy to have just one person in charge of a body that is supposed to uphold the idea of federal character.
Honestly.
So, and I think that the story is just a wake-up call for the, president to know that we have this situation here and to quickly address it.
Yeah, you can't have vacancies.
So that the Federal Character Commission can be properly constituted according to the law, setting it up.
These are all the loopholes that we need to fill, It's so good to have this being brought into light, honestly.
Well, there's also this front page story, The Guardian. The Guardian has as its front page story, major story lead, presidency cooker clash over Buhari's undeclared assets. Bishop accuses president of clannishness, divisiveness, says no sane citizen ready to die for rudderless Nigeria. I escaped assassination attempts as EFCC chair, says Waziri. Well, the Catholic Bishop of Sokoto has been very critical of the Buhari administration.
Extremely.
And yesterday, at 2 different occasions, he gave, very strong, he made very strong statements. First, at the book launch by former EFCC chair, Mrs. Farida Waziri, where he was represented, and second, at another event in Abuja, in Kaduna, where he delivered a homily at the burial of the Catholic seminarian who was killed by kidnappers. And he had a lot to say about Nigeria. He says Nigeria is not worth dying for because the values that will make anyone die for Nigeria will seem to have disappeared under the watch of the present administration. Well, that's all we'll be able to take on the review of newspapers today. We'll continue tomorrow.
you.